And I argue that if anything, Ram will be a more skilled driver, because the Ram has to drive on a road like this, whereas what the Sven faces is this. Yeah? Basically Sven can get paid as far as he knows how to drive straight. Yeah? Whereas Ram has to dodge the cow, dodge the rickshaw, dodge the bicycles stacked 3 meters high with the crates, you name it. Yeah? And then I explained that this is mainly about immigration control and so on. I wouldn't tell you more. I mean, you have to read this. I'm not going to give you all the preview. So there are more things. So thing 19 says, despite the fall of communism, we are still living in planned economies. Yes, we are. Thing 4, the washing machine has changed the world more than the internet has. Thing 13, making rich people richer doesn't make the rest of the richer. Yes, I mean, the slogan during the Thatcher and New Labour period was that we first have to make rich people stinking rich, so that some money will flow down. Actually, this hasn't happened. And there are good reasons, and I explained the reasons in this thing. Thing 22, financial markets need to become less, not more efficient. Thing 20, equality of opportunity may not be fair. Yeah, I recently had an article in The Guardian a couple of days ago on this issue. So if you're interested, you can read that. Thing 16, we are not smart enough to leave things to the market. Thing 23, good economic policies does not require good economists. That will make me very popular among my colleagues, but I'm already beyond the pale, so I don't really care. And thing 15, people in poor countries are actually more entrepreneurial than people in rich countries. Typically we say, people in poor countries, they are lazy, they are not enterprising, that's why they are poor. No, actually, the reality is the opposite. Anyway, I cannot go into the details today. Oh, sorry, that's for later. When I say these things, some of you may think that I'm anti-capitalist. That would be actually wrong. I mean, to paraphrase Winston Churchill, I think that capitalism is the worst economic system except for all the others. I mean, it has a lot of problems, but it's, in my view, still the best economic system that the humanity has invented. But the problem is that over the last 3 decades, we have lived under a very particular form of capitalism, that is free market capitalism, which has served us very poorly. The point is that there are many different ways to run capitalism. I mean, it's not just American-style capitalism that is viable. I mean, there are many different forms. There are the Japanese form, the Chinese form, the Swedish form, the German form, the French form. But over the last 30 years, we have been told that there is only one form of capitalism that works, and that is Anglo-American style free market capitalism. Over the last 3 decades, this form of capitalism has produced very disappointing results. And I'm not just talking about the financial crisis that we are going through today. Even before the crisis, there was plenty of evidence that things were not going well. Of course, we've been told by all these free market gurus that things are going swimmingly well with the advent of post-industrial knowledge economy, the demise of business cycles, the arrival of the Goldilocks economy, the great moderation, the taming of inflation, the revolutions in the telecommunications and transportation technologies. So we are dulled into thinking that, yes, that we are probably living in the best of all possible worlds. But actually, even before the crisis, things were not going well. I mean, let's take the case of economic growth. You know, free market advocates tell us that free market capitalism is the best at creating wealth, even if it may create inequality. Even many critics of free market capitalism agree with this assertion, although then they would say that, however, the high inequality that it produces is morally unacceptable. But the truth is that free market capitalism has been actually very bad at generating growth. You know, in the 1960s and 70s, which free market economists like to describe as a period of disaster that was created by excessive government regulation and punitive taxation for the rich, during that period, the world economy was growing at about 3% per year in per capita terms. Over the last 30 years, the world economy grew at about half that rate. So this assertion that that this system may be harsh, it may create outcomes that some people might find morally unacceptable, but it's the most efficient system in terms of creating wealth. This is completely wrong. The world economy has actually dramatically slowed down over the last 3 decades of free market capitalism, and even that low rate would not have been achieved except for countries like China and India, which, while liberalized to an extent, is by no means following this free market model. And regions where this free market model has been most diligently applied, like Sub-Saharan Africa or Latin America, have seen basically very little growth. For another example, take the case of inflation. Free market advocates tell us that low inflation is a prerequisite for economic growth because it generates a stable environment that investors require. Well, I mean, the logic itself is not difficult to accept, but at least in the rich countries, we have achieved price stability in the last 2 decades. But the overall economic stability has actually increased as we have had much more frequent financial crises and much higher job insecurity during this period. So unless you define economic stability purely in terms of price stability, the world has become more unstable, not less unstable, through this anti-inflationary free market policies. And in many countries, the attempts to bring inflation down to a very low level has reduced investment and growth by cutting demands and making business loans overly expensive. Free market orthodoxy has told the poor countries that they need free trade, free market policies in order to develop their economies. It has said that these are policies that all rich countries, with the possible exception of Japan, use in order to get where they are today. So how there, Ecuador or Guinea-Bissau think that they can do otherwise. However, as I argue in my new book and in greater detail in my previous book, Bad Samaritans, which incidentally was also endorsed by Larry, but the previous publisher found it very amusing that I got a quote from Martin Wolf and Noam Chomsky. They decided to put those two on the cover. As I show in these books, starting from 18th century Britain through to late 19th century US, Germany, and Sweden, down to late 20th century France, Finland, Japan, and South Korea, virtually all of today's rich countries became rich through the use of trade protection, government subsidies, and regulation, rather than free trade, free market policies. I could go on and on with these kind of things, but basically in the book I destroyed many of the kind of key myths in the free market ideology and try to make you think in the the way that they really are. And in trying to explain these and other things, I try my best to dispel the widespread perception that economics is too complicated for non-economists. You know, I say often in my lectures, but also in the book, that 95% of economics is common sense deliberately made complicated, while even the remaining 5% can be explained in its essence, if not in all technical details, if you really try.